Hello, Dream Team. Welcome back to episode 3 of the AMP podcast. And I am very, very excited to be joined by Gurinder today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Russ.
We're going to dive straight into today's episode because I'm going to let you introduce what it is you do and a bit about your background. I'm just going to start by saying that we kind of met on the gym floor. I feel like this is the first time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So working from until both on the gym floor, and I saw this guy kind of rolling around. This guy's doing some interesting things. What's going on here?
Yeah.
We kind of wandered over to have a conversation because I recognised some of the weird moves, and I was actually quite glad to find someone who's doing something weird in the gym too.
Someone who's as weird as me. Yeah.
And we kind of struck up a conversation from there about what it is you do specifically. So just take us through that almost on a kind of postcard answer, if you like, how it is that you make people better.
Yeah, sure. So I work, my niche is basically helping people with lower back. They come and see me to help them basically move free again without fear, overcome like the lack of confidence that they have in their body, and just bring their confidence back again, and then just go back to living the life that they missed out on. They've lost for a period of time because they can't be social, they can't play with their kids, they're distracted at work because of the pain that they're in. And so I'm here to tell them that things are going to be okay. You can get through this with a systematic approach, and confidence back. You can move free without fear again. And
that's good. That was a good intro.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
So that's where you are now, what you're doing now. But I'm kind of interested, and I'm sure listeners will be too, as to how do you get to that point? Where did you start in coaching, and what's the journey been like to get to this point?
Yeah, sure. So the long and short of it is I was never in the fitness industry to start with. I was an economics grad from university. I went into accounting and finance, started working in the tax team in in-house corporation tax. And, it was a great setup in terms of, it's intellectually stimulating. I worked with great people. It was a solid career path, but for me, I was just like, there's something missing. What is it? And then when I really started thinking about my patterns of behavior, I realized every time it hit 12:30, I was super excited to just leave lunch hour to hit the gym. And then when I came back, I was looking forward to leaving at 5:30 again, so I'd go train like something else, do something with my body. And then when I observed that pattern, I realized, hey, I want to actually move into the fitness industry. And at the time, I had no idea about what avenue I could go down. I just knew that I wanted to become a personal trainer. So when I finally got into the fitness industry, at that low rung level of being a fitness coach at Virgin Active, just cutting my teeth, interacting with members, cleaning the gym kit, all that kind of stuff, just being happy to be there so I can work to where I want to be. I met a couple of chiropractors who were pretty pivotal early on in my career, who I would always pick their brains about, like movement and stuff. And it was just a different way of thinking. And tied with my personality of being a bit of a problem solver, I like the analytical approach and I think pretty methodical. I just realized actually the avenue that I want to go down is not just like smashing people on the gym floor, it's actually movement, mobility, function. And so the further I pushed down that road, eventually I got to where I am today. So it was very much an organic process of I've realized I've got a million different avenues I could go down. Where do I want to go? Being confused about it, but then have that confusion was good because it meant two things. I actually cared about where I wanted to go and where I wanted to take it, and the kind of coach and trainer I wanted to become. And so I pushed further and further down that road. I thought, yeah, actually, this is it. This suits me. I'm going to go down this path. And eventually, it led down to working in a clinic with that said chiropractor for 4 years, and picking up on their clients who had injuries and needed rehabilitation after getting their treatment. And but in that time, seeing a lot more lower backs than I would other things. It's like I see the body holistically, which you're probably going to go into at some stage anyway. But it's the whole. I was dealing with shoulders, I was dealing with hip replacements and stuff like that. But the thing I saw the most of was lower backs, and I got more comfortable seeing lower backs and helping people with lower back injuries. It's the thing I've got the most reps in, let's say. And so then I just thought, okay, that's it. That's me. I like that the most. I do that the most. That's what I'm going to help people with, especially because there's such a lot of lack of good information about how to overcome back pain when it's such a common thing. That I just this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and just in preparation for the conversation, I had a look at some of the stats around lower back pain, and it's a big. I mean, it's a niche area for PT, but it's a big area of concern generally across the UK, but everywhere globally, really. I mean, I was looking at some amazing stats. So 60% of adults will experience back pain at some point in their life. In any given month, I think there was about 15,000 people, and found that one in six would have back pain at any one time in 1 month. I mean, just extraordinary numbers. And then, I suppose, from your perspective, what is it that's, you may see lots of people present in lots of different ways, but what is it that's people are struggling with specifically that might be even creating or keeping the back pain as a feature of their life?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that go into it. So the approach I take is more like it's a nervous system based approach, as in there's the biomechanics of it, is like how you hold your body up, but then ultimately your nervous system is governing your movement. So what is influencing your nervous system? It turns out pretty much everything, a lot of things. So that's the way you're interacting with your environment. So not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. So there's the mental aspect, there's the emotional aspect, there's the physical aspect. So all those different things can be affecting somebody's pain level, sensitivity to pain, tolerance to pain. So a good example is day-to-day stresses. So we're in the heart of London. It's a fast-paced, safe lifestyle. A lot of people actually tolerate quite a high level of stress in these types of environments without really realizing it. And stress is acting on the nervous system, and pain is modulated by the nervous system. So the more stress that we're under as individuals, the less buffer or less capacity we have to, or rather, the best way to put it is the more stress we're under, the more sensitive we are to pain. So stress is something that's going to be affecting.
Because I guess a lot of people would naturally assume that it's a sort of physical, there's something physically wrong with my back.
Yeah.
I either have weak back muscles or there's something wrong with my spine. Do you hear that kind of stuff quite a lot?
Yeah. A lot of the time is like, I was literally speaking about it last week with a client of mine. So one of the sessions was actually just dedicated to us sitting together like this. And I'm showing him anatomy going, this is what your spine, the structures around your spine look like. Your idea of a slipped disc is something that's holding you back because, some medical professional 15 years ago told you that a slipped disc means that you're never going to recover from it. And he's like, actually, the terminology is awful. It doesn't mean what you think it means. And you need to understand how it actually functioned. And he was like, this is really helpful. It's helped clear up a lot of what's going on in my mind. It's reassured me. So there's a lot of beliefs around what's happening physically. And really, even if you have structural damage, like you might have a bulging disc, or you could even have joints that are fused together. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in pain. And there's a great line that I like to repeat often to my clients, which I learned from Jordan Shallows, wedged out chiropractor. He says you can always outfunction bad structure. And I've seen it happen time and time again. So when he said it that simply, I was like, this is a perfect way to explain that the structure doesn't mean that you are predestined to pain or predetermined for it. It means that you just need to work a bit more on your function to improve your pain symptoms. So the belief that it's just a physical thing needs to kind of die a little bit. Is more like understanding you as a human being, you as an individual, all the things that are affecting your life. Because as I mentioned, stress is one of those things. Nutrition is another thing. The sleep status is another thing. Your movement capacity, movement capability is another thing. There's lots of different things that are affecting it, and it's not just a physical thing.
So I'd imagine there's a few people listening who would maybe be skeptical about the ideas that you're presenting, because in exactly the same way you said, people hear things from medical professionals and it sticks, it really stays with us. But it sounds, like if you're trying to talk to someone about reducing their stress, for instance, it's easy to be skeptical, I think, about, well, that's not just going to get rid of my back. It needs to be something else as well.
Yeah.
Do you get that kind of thing where people go, that sounds great, but if you could just kind of click my back, or I could just have a silver bullet type approach, that'd be really good. Do you get that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, I think, so I just said to him, look, I'm actually a trainer by trade, so I ain't touching it. It's like, I'm not doing manipulation or like a massage therapy or anything like that. Yeah. So, but I'm giving you the things that you need that you can do in your own time, giving you the tools so you can take care of it. And I think over the time, over the years, as I've got better at what I do, I attract that type of person less, because they'll look on social media marketing and they'll realize, okay, he's talking about real change here. He's not talking about his bullet, magic bullet that's going to do the job, or magic pill that's going to do the job, or the silver bullet. And so I attract less of those kinds of people, and I tend to weed them out as well. So it's like, if you're just looking for a quick fix, I'm telling you, I'm not the guy for you, because you actually need to make the change for yourself. It's not interesting for me, and actually, so for those kinds of people, it's just being explicit. I just say it's going to take a patient approach. You're going to need you need to be diligent about this, and that doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It just means you're working towards something which is making you better. You're working towards your goal of being pain free, and by doing that, even the smallest thing daily is going to make a difference. So you have to build that habit around for your body to actually really make the changes stick. Your brain to understand that this stuff needs to stick. Because the way that I'm working, when I say nervous system approach, is really like that interaction, it's that language, it's that communication between the brain and the body. What is the input that the body is giving the brain, and what's the output that the brain is spitting out? And if there's pain, then that's basically saying, hey, there's a signal for change. We need to change something. So if you're not changing things, and you're just relying on somebody else to do that for you, and it's never going to be something you're going to get away from. It's not going to, your life isn't generally going to improve as a result of that. It depends on how philosophy you want to get about it as well, because it's that pursuit of doing something difficult and overcoming that, which gives you so much more than just actually getting out of pain and relying. So if you're relying on somebody else, you're taking that agency away from yourself. Whereas if you're relying on yourself, then you're like, okay, what else can I do? It's like, there's nothing that I can't do if I've got something which has been so debilitating for me for most of my clients a number of years, but I've got out. It's like, that means I can do anything. So there's that aspect of it as well. So don't be that person who wants a quick fix. Be that person who wants to actually put the effort in, and then you're going to get way more out of it than you actually thought you would.
It sounds like, listening to you speak about the process, that there's an element of symptom relief, and then there's an element of also looking for the root cause, like what actually caused the thing in the first place, and then potentially also you alluded to a longer term strategy to maybe prevent it from coming back in the future. Would that be fair enough? Is there or are there more sections that I've left out?
Yeah, broadly, it's like, symptom relief, but that symptom relief is coming from trying to find the cause, and then once we've done that, it's like, okay, we need to put you on a program where you're going to go from relief to improved function. Improved function, as we've mentioned, improving the function you can outfunction bad structure if the structure is a problem. Side note, a lot of times it isn't. It's like there's a lot of non-specific back pain out there for people who suffer. It's like you're not going to be able to pin it down onto one thing a lot of the time. So don't try and look for it as well. Just to actually just do the basic things that are going to work well. And then, so then putting you on that plan where you're going to improve function, and then as the function starts to improve, you start to feel better in your body. You want endurance, because the first thing that your structures around the spine are looking for are durability, and then building strength so you have more capacity, and then you need it as well, like power on top of that as well. So your ability to handle your body in lots of different ways is what we're aiming at, and able to do that long term. You're like, okay, I had this program, this worked for me, I know exactly what I need to do for the rest of my life to be able to take care of this.
It's fascinating listening to your choice of words there in terms of and I think we'll get on to the actual methods, almost like what it's like to be, to have a session with yourself, be on the gym floor, like the specifics of what you do. But what's interesting there was, as you were talking about all those athletic traits, fortunately, I've never had chronic back pain myself, but having come into contact with enough people who have, I know they're in a desperate situation at times, and it can be really, really hard emotionally. It can be debilitating. You comparing what you can do now pain-free to what you used to be able to do. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that stuff that's really, really difficult. It couldn't be any further away from feeling athletic at times, So it's really interesting to use that terminology. And I just wanted to segue from there into I guess for people listening, what are the sort of tools that you do use when you're on the gym floor? What are the movement patterns that you're looking at? Is it different every single time for someone, or is there a routine? Are there certain exercises you use with most people?
Yeah, so there will be certain exercises I use most of the time with most people, because principally what I notice is two things that are happening with people who are suffering from lower back pain is pretty much 100% of the time their optimal breathing pattern is off. So why that's important to touch on that is just because if your breathing is off, then that just basically means that your core musculature isn't being used appropriately, and then you can't build optimal core stability and strength off of that to be able to support your spine well during, if we're talking athletics, and during, say, heavy lifting or, being explosive or anything like that. And then you do that long enough, you do that with enough repetitions, your back just goes, no, thank you. So there's the breathing aspect of it, and that's going to be a foundation. And so definitely going to be using that a lot with pretty much everyone, and then building up their durability and capacity with that, with so-called core strengthening exercises. It's a bit of a nebulous term, but it's just essentially we're going to be using that type of breathing pattern for every exercise that we're going to be doing, and graded for the type of exercise and intensity of the exercise and things like that. And then there's mobility of the spine as well. So the mobility of the spine has taken a hit. Generally speaking, some people are lacking mobility in one part of the spine. So when I say mobility, I mean good, useful movement quality through the spine, where they'll be lacking it, so they'll be overly stiff somewhere, and then somewhere else has to make up for that. So there's a disparity in the whole spinal structure and how it's moving. So we're trying to get that mobility back as well. And then there's also the fact that there's various reasons for somebody to get back pain. It could be let's say a football player who's had multiple ankle sprains, and it turns out that the way they're loading on their ankle is the thing that's triggering their back. And then there could be somebody else who could be an overhead athlete. We're talking athletes here, but again, it could just be regular folks. You could just be overusing your back muscles to help you complete a movement where you're grasping at something, let's say. And then it's like, okay, well, we need to work on that shoulder stability alongside, or shoulder function alongside improving your back function. So there'll be a couple of things a few things that I'll use often. But in terms of the assessment, it's going to be deriving what somebody actually needs. Is like, let's look at your whole body and how it moves, and then build a program off of that so that we are addressing any deficiencies. And so the interesting thing there is somebody can be presenting with back pain. Two people can be presenting with back pain in exactly the same place, exactly the same way, but the reason for it could be two entirely different things. So somebody might be local. It could be just, and by that I mean it could just be in the actual back itself. Or, if we highlight this with an example, you've got right-sided back pain just above the glute in that right central area. And so somebody, it might be an imbalance between hip flexors and hip extensors, i.e. psoas and iliacus muscle, which some people are familiar with, the glute muscles, and then you start to correct that and you start to get symptom relief. But for another person, you could do that all day long. They're not getting any kind of relief. And you realize, it's actually coming from your ankle. You start to work that, then you start to extend your hip properly, and then you actually take pressure off your lower back. So two completely presentations are exactly the same, but the reason for the issue is entirely different. So that's why you've got to look at everything that the person's doing, their injury history, as well as the way that they're moving on the gym floor in day-to-day life. And so there'll be several things which I'm using often, and there's other things which will be specific to that presentation as well.
Because it sounds, from what you're saying there, the assessment of why it's happening is a really, really critical bit to get right.
Yeah.
Because then after that, actually, you're trying to progress on to the normal exercises that you want to be doing pain-free, to keep you pain-free.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of, you talked about a couple of things there, but I think breathing is an interesting one I'd like to pick up on and delve into that a little bit more, because that might be perhaps more alien. It seems more removed. Breathing happens higher up, usually than where the low back pain is. What's the connection there physically? And then what are the drills that people can do? What are the types of breathing drills people can do that you actually work with people on the gym floor?
Yeah, sure. So Well, with breathing, fundamentally, it's taking care of a lot of things. Obviously, number one, people know is to keep us alive, and so because of that, it's an automatic thing. But it has more complex functions as well. So there's the other thing, and because of those layers of complexity, that's why it's easy for it to get screwed up for people. So the first one is it's got to keep you alive. So you're going to be breathing no matter what, just so you can stay alive. But how you're doing it also affects the quality of your life. And so let's say if you're a back pain, it's going to affect how much pain you're experiencing. And it probably was a contributing factor for you getting into that pain in the first place. So functionally, the other thing is doing is supporting the spine. And the way that happens is if you take a breath in, every time you take a breath in, there's a sheet of muscle that kind of looks like an umbrella that sits underneath your rib cage. And it's called a diaphragm. And that diaphragm has to descend downwards. So when it starts to pull down, it creates like a pressure in the unit where you know where your organs are sitting. And that pressure helps to create spinal stability. And I know I've said that phrase a few times, and what that essentially means is, how well supported does your spine feel for you to make movement where it doesn't put it into a suboptimal position, and which will ultimately cause problems in that region. So when it's doing that and creating that pressure, there's like an expansion that goes on, and it's the way you breathe. If you do that properly, then that's actually helping all the other core muscles to reflexively, i.e., automatically work better and more in a way that is appropriate for movement and for function. Now, if you notice most people when they breathe, especially as I was talking about in this like fast-paced, stressed-out culture, we take a breath in, we're breathing in through our neck, using our neck muscles, we're lifting the rib cage up as opposed to letting it expand sideways. And that means that the diaphragm isn't getting used very well. And then that means that the pressure isn't getting created, and that means the spine isn't getting the support that we want it to get. And all muscle function just gets kind of disorganized, and it's not coordinated well. And then that's why you can experience pain and discomfort in different ways. Then on top of that, not only is it important for that function to keep you preventing back pain, but then also recovering from it. The brain is very well connected to your breathing, and what I mean is your breath is telling your brain what your state of stress is in a given moment. So there's a nerve that connects from the brain stem, which is a very primitive part of the body, part of the brain, and taking that information in from the breath and from that diaphragm muscle is connected to that. And when you breathe, if you're breathing shallow, if you're breathing fast, then your brain is thinking, oh, there's a bit of stress here, because the only way it knows what's going on is by the signals it's receiving from the body. So it goes, oh, there's a little bit of stress here. Like I'm breathing shallow, I'm breathing fast. I mean, something must be about to happen. So it puts you in this bit more of a stress state. Whereas if your breathing is slow, controlled, your exhale is, say, twice as long as your inhale, then your brain goes, oh, the environment's cool. Everything's all good. I can relax. So going back to what I said about stress on the nervous system and pain is modulated by the nervous system. So if your breathing is off, then your brain is perceiving a little bit extra stress. And that means you are more likely to experience pain because your sensitivity to pain goes up. So that's another reason why breathing is important, not just for keeping you alive, but keeping you calm as well as keeping you well functioning with how you're keeping your core functioning properly, so that you're supporting your back, and not just that, you're actually more athletic. You're going to be more powerful. You're going to be stronger because when you use those muscles appropriately in that right coordination, they're going to end up functioning in a way which transfers forces and powers better.
Just pause on that. Yeah, I think that kind of breathing mechanic stuff is fascinating. And I suppose what you're talking about there is the fight-flight response, right? That typical sort of sympathetic nervous system dominance where everything's hyped up, ready to deal with that threat, ready to either fight or flight. But unfortunately, a lot of, as you said already, a lot of those people are either sat behind a desk or at work or in meetings. So they're not going to be able to get away from that So your body is preparing for this fight or this flight constantly, and then you're just sitting in this slightly more stressed state, and that kind of contributes to, as you said there, the sensitivity. But also your muscles are preparing too, right? So everything's engaged and tensed. Having sort of dealt with a lot of people over my time as a PT with pain generally, is that muscle spasms, stiffness, and a lack of mobility is kind of a hallmark of feeling like that. I mean, if anyone's ever tweaked their neck and they turn it, and then it looks like you're rotating around in this, so there's a cylinder. Yeah. You've got the whole body cast on. You sort of end up rotating from your hips in order to lift. Is that a feature too? Because you've mentioned mobility already. Is that a feature of sort of freeing that up? This goes alongside the breathing.
100%. And there's definitely cases where somebody comes in for a session and you just kind of read the situation in the first 30 seconds or so, and you just go, you know what, that has happened where I've just gone, we're just not going to do what we're about to do. I need to just get your nervous system calm right down. I need you to calm down. I need you to relax so that the stuff that we do is actually going to make a difference to you. So that's the other thing as well. When you're in that hyper-stress state, your body's really not going to be very adaptable in that state. And so we have to get you to relax a little bit. And so I'll bring people in and just get them to lie on their back and breathe, And this is something that people can do in real time as well, where, like, if you're in the office and, exactly the scenario you described, you're going from like meeting to meeting, you're stuck with your hunched to your desk and stress is kind of high. Everybody can take 1 to 2 minutes. I don't care how busy you are. Everybody's got literally 1 minute to be able to just work on taking a 5-second inhale and 10-second exhale. 5-second inhale, 10-second exhale. Do that for a minute and tell me you didn't feel a difference, right? Because it is that powerful, and that's how well connected the brain and breathing. The brain is the breathing pattern and helping you feel better. So there's something you can do physically to help you mentally feel better. So there's that kind of technique, and there's variations of it as well. But that's a very simple one that I like people to use because it grounds you a little bit. It makes you forget everything else for a second and just work on this technique. And then not only that, then when you've done that, you actually feel like you're in a better mind state. You can relax your body and therefore relax your mind somewhat as well. So there's I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Do you know what? I'm sort of mesmerized sitting and listening to you speak about it, because you speak about it with such a lot of clarity, such a lot of confidence, from having seen clients come in, present with, bad back pain, and then go through these fairly simple steps. With the assessment process that you described is quite complex, but that's the bit you're doing. The bit they're doing is breathing, relaxing, gently moving, just kind of following along with what you're suggesting. And I think that the thing that my mind was picking up on as you were talking is that the perception. I mean, I was sat here feeling more comfortable about the idea of having back pain just listening to you talk about it. And it's that appraisal of, when I've got back pain, how do I get out of this? I need some tools to be able to at least just change how it feels, take it from an 8 to a 6, or, and then I'm perceiving my ability to be able to deal with this is okay. And I think that psychological component, something you touched on at the very beginning, where it's like, if we feel like we've got no method of being able to change the pain, the stress of that it's upsetting to even think about being in that situation. Whereas as soon as you've got these tools, now you've got a way of being able to take back a bit of control over your own body. Is that true for what you experience with clients?
Yeah, big time. Man, there's so many things that we could go into. Like the fact that you said, just sitting here with you, I feel more comfortable if I had back pain. That's so important for people. It's unbelievable how much you can just change how much pain you're experiencing by actually being optimistic about your outcome. So when people are optimistic and they feel hopeful, they're in those states of mind and they're much better. Not only are they going to be much more likely to achieve a pain-free outcome on their journey toward being out of pain, they're also in a given moment going to feel better than somebody who's catastrophizing.
And I think it's probably worth saying as well at this point, just for people who are new to this kind of language, that stuff is supported quite extensively in the literature. Because I know holistic practices and approaches have in the past been deemed by lots of people to be a bit out there, a bit fringe. But actually, those fringe practices have then triggered the scientific community to actually test those things out. And there's a lot of research that supports that, both in the medical field with doctors' bedside manner. It's been shown to have a genuine impact on patient outcome, but also, as you're saying as well, in back pain.
I mean, like, we delve further into that as well. As like, just listening to someone on that initial consultation can sometimes be more powerful than the actual treatment that somebody might give them, because they feel heard. They feel like somebody's actually caring about what they're going through, and that in and of itself. You don't even have to do anything for the person; they just feel better because you've done that. And then obviously, then you combine it with actually giving them something useful to do. Then not only is it more effective, it's you trigger that hope as well. So I was literally speaking to a potential client last week about the times that they've experienced being pain-free, and the times they said they did was when they were kind of lost in their social occasions, and also felt hopeful. So that hope is like, okay, I feel like I can get out of this scenario. But that social connection that they experience, people forget that having close friends and family to be able to rely on, or cultivating those close relationships if you don't have them right now, is going to actually buffer against any kind of pain that you're experiencing. Because we are, it's like that's age-old saying. It's like it's a cliche nowadays. We're social creatures, but nobody really takes that seriously. It's like the bigger our kind of cities get, the more millions and millions of people that we're surrounded by, the lonelier we're actually tending to feel. So it's really, really important to cultivate those relationships so that we can actually buffer against pain, if that's the goal. Let alone just have good quality of life.
That's fascinating how a conversation about low back pain reaches so far, I think.
Yeah, completely. And it's like, we're talking about low back pain, but it applies to everything. It's like people talk about it in terms of like mental health as well, where it's not exactly it's not my field of incorporating those kinds of things, but they talk about how exercise is more potent than antidepressants for a lot of people who are experiencing depression or some form of depression. So it's multifaceted and it's all interconnected. You can't separate anything out. So whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, whether it's just I want to live a good life, I want to get out of a crap scenario that I'm in, there are certain things which are fundamental to achieving that. Using your body, cultivating good relationships, fueling yourself healthily, and doing activities which help you find yourself in a state of flow, whatever that might be. Some people it might be art, some people it might be martial arts. Find your thing, and then you realize that because your quality of life goes up, your chances of staying in pain go down.
So, I mean, we talked a lot about some of the preventative strategies, some of the symptom relief strategies. There must be occasions where, because as you were talking now, I was thinking, okay, does this apply more to chronic back pain? Is this, long-term niggles that come and go, or things that have not been as a result of an acute injury or a moment? Does this apply also to things that are acute injuries or moments? And to that end, sort of, when does it not work?
Yeah. So
I suppose it's a difficult question, because that assessment process sounded like the most complicated bit you described so far. Like you saying this ankle is actually creating this back pain. It's not intuitive. You watching somebody move and go, your breathing patterns off, we're not going to do this. That's your skill. But there must be times when you go, I don't know what's going on. Or my approach is not good.
No, 100%. Is the reasons that it couldn't work. Like, first I'll put it on me, which is, like you said, is like you're looking at something like, I don't actually know what's going on. Like, this is pretty complicated. Luckily, I have like really good mentors who I'll just put myself in, like, what would they do kind of frame of mind, or I'll just ask them questions. I'll jump on the call with them and something like that. And the other thing is like, maybe I just don't actually have the skill set for this yet, because the way my heuristic is, if I'm working with somebody, and because most of these people need that long-term support, so I'll be working with somebody for at least 3 months. That's how the structure is. I want this because then I can be confident that it's going to go well. If I'm not seeing any kind of like improvement and I know this person's doing everything I've asked, then it's like, okay, something else is going on here. I'm probably going to need to refer you out. So there's that. It's like my skill set either isn't quite there yet, and that's something I'm always looking to improve because I just love learning about this stuff. Or it could just be actually, it is a different issue. So we touched on the psychology of stuff. Somebody who's pain could actually be purely psychological. So there's no amount of work that I'm going to do is actually going to help them. So they actually need to see somebody who specializes in helping people psychologically with pain. So I would be like, you need to go see somebody like that. So that could be an instance where my approach isn't going to work. So those are the two main ones that get covered by it. There's also, it's more kind of, because it's a collaborative effort as well. It's like me with my client. I need to understand what's going on in your life, so for me to be able to help you as best as I can. And so be honest, if you told me you didn't do the work for the last week, it's better that you tell me that rather than being like, yeah, I did everything, and I'm looking at you saying, nothing's changing, what's going on, right? It's not helpful for either of us.
I think that reminds me of my escapades into learning the violin when I was younger. Right. I suppose I spent more time trying to convince two adults that I had been practicing
and actually practicing
when the results on the fiddle were quite obviously
brilliant.
giving me away. It didn't work.
Yeah,
safe to say, here I am.
You're not playing the fiddle. Exactly. So it's like, who's there helping? But so like on that kind of like, it's a collaborative effort. So there's a times where you could be doing everything, that's required of you, but your mindset is still kind of stuck in this isn't going to work. And so your actions might be like I'm doing everything, but the way that you approach it is kind of suggesting that you're telling yourself subconsciously or consciously, whatever it might be, that this isn't going to work. So that actually is going to be a scenario where, again, I could throw everything at you, I could throw the kitchen sink at you, but if that mindset isn't going to change, which is something I help people with. So there's that border between, okay, I'm helping you with mindset, but then if it goes deeper than that, then I need you to go get psychological help, and that's totally fine. Go get psychotherapy. That's a very valid and highly appropriate thing for you to be doing. But if it's just a mindset thing there and you're not willing to shift on that, and you don't recognize it as a thing, then again, there's only so much I can do for you. So there's those kind of few scenarios where it's not going to make a difference. It's just like, okay, I'm at this stage where I need to refer you out, or my skill set doesn't quite cover this, and I need to refer you out, and I need to know, like, and if you're kind of like doing the action, but you're not believing in the outcome, that's also really tricky. But that doesn't happen as often because when I start working with people, we're covering those kinds of things, and just from that initial consultation session, they usually go, I feel actually hopeful. I feel optimistic for the first time in a long time because I've been through this process with me in the way that you have. So yes, that's when it might not.
What about just on the last one on this point? There's a lot of people go for different types of back surgeries, and some people really early in life, sort of 20s, 30s, opting to go in down the surgical route. What do you make of that generally? I know that's a big question.
Yeah.
What's your advice to people that you work with if they're thinking about doing that? And are there times when you've actually referred, you said that's probably the best.
Yeah, so my thought on that is make it the very, very last thing you've done at the end of an exhaustive list of things that you've already done. So this is all like based on research as well, is like most of the back problems that people experience, most of the surgeries that people go for, surgery has no better outcome than non-invasive care. I.e., if you're going to physio, chiro, osteopathy, seeing someone like me, and you're working on it, that's going to have the same outcome as somebody who's gone through surgery. And I'd argue it's going to have a better outcome because what surgery is doing is not fixing the cause of the problem. There was something. So if we're talking about you need to get a discectomy, so you need to have your disc removed from your back because that was pressing on a nerve and that was causing you pain. It's going to relieve the pain, but it's not going to address the thing that caused the disc needed to be taken out of your body in the first place. So you still actually have to go back and do the work to make sure that your body is moving better so that you don't do the same thing at a different joint.
So you're going to end up doing the physiotherapy afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. And you need to,
and then you're going to need to keep exercising as well.
Completely. So, yeah, so it's just make surgery your very, very last resort at the end of a list of stuff that you've done, which is exhaustive. The tricky thing there is, again, because there's always going to be nuance to this type of thing, is this is for most people as well. There's obviously cases where somebody, if they've got like numbness and incontinence and stuff like that, it's like you need to go to A&E, you probably need to get surgery right now, depending on what's going on. But for most people, everyday people, it's just not going to be. It's not really going to be necessary. So go through that non-invasive route first. And where I say there's nuance as well is I get a lot of people coming to me where they go, I went to see this person, I went to see that person, I did this, I did that. You're bouncing around between a lot of different opinions and a lot of different options for yourself without actually committing to one of them. And if you had just committed and just gone that whole hog and did everything that person told you, you'd probably be okay. And especially because somebody I've come across recently has seen some of the top people in the country, and I was like, how am I going to help this person? And you delve a little bit deeper, and you realize they're bouncing around and looking for that silver bullet, but then haven't actually been able to commit to the process, or they haven't been willing to. So my thing is, if you commit to a process, you do that for at least, depending on the level of your problem, 3 to 6 months. And if then nothing changes, sure, go for surgery. But I'm willing to bet that a lot will change in that period of time if it's not something serious that is a red flag that needs surgery immediately. I know personally people who have a pretty major disc herniations, and you come across people like that online. There's a famous one of a power lifter who used to put thousands and thousands of kilos worth of force through his body every single day, and absolutely tore his back to pieces, like physically. Rehabbed himself in 9 months, and then goes back and was breaking records. He didn't have surgery, so it's like there's plenty of options available to you, basically, and commit to an option before you even think about going for surgery.
Nice. Yeah, I've got so you've got about 2 minutes or so just before we wrap things up.
Sure.
This is a big ask.
Okay. Cool. Let me brace myself.
No, I think I was just wanting to wrap up by saying, because there are a lot of people out there with back pain who are genuinely interested in listening to what you have said, and would be wanting to perhaps maybe even take things on their own and try some things out. Generally speaking, what's your advice to people who have got back pain in terms of things that they can try outside of obviously seeking help from a coach or professional, like things they should be doing that you've mentioned already, just as by way of a summary? Yeah, in case they've just tuned back in, because I've been talking for a while and now they want to listen to you.
No, so I'd say no particular order, but I'd say they're all important. Work on your mindset. So by that I mean cultivate optimism and hope. If you're in pain, there's been a time in your life where you've been out of pain. Because you've been out of pain before, that means you can be out of pain again. So always remember that and hold on to hope that you can get out of pain. So that's number one, is like working on that kind of mindset and flipping the script on yourself. Don't tell yourself that this is how it's going to be. Tell yourself, okay, I've been somewhere better before. I know I can get there again. And then the other thing is movement is medicine. Is a phrase that gets kind of thrown around a little bit in our industry, but it is true. Most of the time, people think they need to rest. And it's like, oh, okay, I've got a back problem, I just need to rest. Actually, that makes the situation worse for a variety of reasons. But the main thing is if you're moving, you're creating, you're telling your brain that it's actually safe for you to move, and obviously do that in a pain-free kind of way. Just move as much as you can, retain as much capacity in your body as you can by keeping yourself moving, and move as much as you can pain-free. And if you're living quite a sedentary lifestyle, then frequency of movement trumps volume of movement. By that I mean, if you move for 2 minutes or even just 1 minute every hour on the hour for 10 hours, say that's like 10 to 20 minutes worth of movement. That's actually better than doing 10 to 20 minutes of movement at the end of a 10-hour stint of sitting straight, instead of being sedentary, because your body craves movement and your brain craves movement. So if you do that, then you're buffering against any potential backache. And if you are suffering, then it helps to alleviate that somewhat as well by moving frequently. So there's a couple of things where it's like working the mindset, making sure you're moving, and then really like in our stressed out lifestyles, we definitely need to be managing that better. So do what you can to manage the stress, whether it's that breathing technique I just talked about a little bit earlier, where you're trying to get yourself from a stress state to a more calm state, whether it's taking on other activities which help you relax. So it's like it is activities. It's like sitting in front of a TV at the end of the evening and watching Netflix for an hour and a half or something. What? sorry to break it to you, man.
Just tell me what I want to hear. Don't tell me what I need to know.
Okay, yeah. Just get back on the TV and then maybe. But it's because you want to do something which actually helps you buffer from the day. And yes, it's a nice experience to just kind of like veg out. But the other thing is your brain is still kind of active in that state. It's not actually relaxing in the way that we think it is. Relaxing is actually doing some things which actively bring you back down into a more relaxed state rather than just kind of passively sitting there staring at TV. So again, you can do those things, but it's just then between that and let's say bedtime that you're actually giving yourself 15 to 20 minutes to actually really calm down and settle down. And so you're actually getting a good quality night's sleep as well. So it's just doing things day to day which help you buffer against the stresses that you're experiencing, which can also help reduce your pain sensitivity.
Awesome stuff. I enjoyed that very much. If people want to get a hold of you,
yeah, so Instagram is a good place. So it's just my name, Gurinder Sandhu Coaching. I won't spell that out. I think that'll probably be in the show notes. And yes, that's an easy place to find me. There's a bunch of videos that I've put up on there. But there's hopefully useful content for people, and they can also get in touch with me through the link in the bio and connect me to book an initial troubleshooting call. So if somebody's suffering or know somebody who's suffering, you can just book a call in with me. We can talk about what the problem is. I can make sure I'm the right person to help you, and then we can take it from there and get you booked in for initial consultation and talk about what's appropriate.
Amazing. I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much, our listeners, and see you guys next time.